Good morning, or depending on when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross and I was taught how to voice for radio, so I've made some videos. This is from Newport Regionals, the very first regionals in the UK just 3 days after Breakthrough was made legal. So these are the first really big tournaments around where the Breakthrough, the new set, will be legal. So you can learn about the new cards, the new decks, and the new strategies by watching these videos. I should thank the lovely Deborah Richards, who not only put on this tournament, but she let me record and she made it really easy for me to do so at the same time. So thank you very much to her. We are in the format X and Y to Ancient Origins, and we are playing 6 rounds of 50-minute best of 3. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so round 4 from this lovely Breakthrough Legal UK Regional shows 2 exceptional players. On the right, we have Tamal Cameron. He has been, it looks like he won the flip, he seemed excited. On the right, we have Tamal Cameron. He has played at Worlds, I think at least 4 years in a row at this stage, and made top 32 at Worlds a couple of years ago with Kling Klang. And on the left, we have Ollie Fenley, Coach Trip Ollie Fenley, if you will, who is the reigning UK national champion. Now, you could make an argument that he was playing in the format where we had Lysandre's trump card and Toad was the only viable deck and he played Toad. Well, so did a lot of other people, ladies and gentlemen, and only Ollie won UK nationals officially. So, Tamal is going first, he has won the flip, and he is playing Evil Tau, Vespiquen, Bats, not unlike my own deck that I've been talking about on my podcast PTCG Radio lately, that both myself and Joe Bernard have topped regionals with in recent weeks. But he's playing a very, very different list, and I believe he was playing some version of this deck actually a week before me and Joe came out with our deck, so I don't think we can particularly blame him. So, Tamal's playing a very unusual deck with 1-1 Ariados and 1-1 Octillery and 1 Bridget, and he showed me his list. It is crazy, ladies and gentlemen, but it's kind of fun. So he gets a Battle Compressor early on, and he knows he's playing against Vileplume Regice. I'll give that away for nothing. Tamal knows this going into the game, so he's thinking straight away, what am I going to do? I'm going to need to go full-on Vespiquen here. He knows that Combi is not getting KO'd on the first turn of Ollie's first turn, so Tamal goes straight away with the energy on the Combi that's not getting KO'd, and he uses the Battle Compressor to start dumping Pokemon. Interestingly, Tamal did not dump a supporter with the Battle Compressor, so either he's got a supporter that he's not playing, or he doesn't have a VS Seeker. It is unusual to see somebody play a VS Seeker and not dump a supporter, unless they're about to literally play a supporter right away. So Ollie straight away gets rid of a Forest of Giant Plants and a Lysandre, and he goes about trying to get something going. Now he is playing Vileplume Regice. The Regice blocks attacks from EX Pokemon after you attack for a water and a double colorless. I know he plays cards like Miltank and Lugia, but Ollie's got a problem here in that his deck is really, really good at slowing down / stopping EX decks. Not quite so good against non-EX decks like Tamal's. But if he can get a turn 1... oh, there goes the Forest of Giant Plants. If Ollie can go about getting a turn 1... What am I talking about here? If he can get a turn 1 Vileplume... Sorry, I completely zoned out for a second. I'm still a little bit poorly. You will have to forgive me. Or not, but just please don't say mean things in the comments. It will hurt my feelings, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to try and get a turn 1 Vileplume, and if he can, that's going to be the great equaliser here. Now, he has had to get rid of 2 water energy early game, which is far from ideal, and it looks like he's got it. It looks like he's got a level ball and a Vileplume in hand. I might have misseen that, but a level ball will get him a Gloom, and actually got a second level ball there to get him a second Gloom as well. And remember that Forest of Giant Plants is a support, and he has got the Vileplume in hand, he does. So Ollie's going to play out all of his trainers in this turn, and then he's going to evolve straight up into his Vileplume, and Tamal might have played his last trainer for the turn. Now, Ollie here, it looks like he's going to be going for a Trainer's Mail, which is why, yeah. There is an argument that he should have played the Alt Level Ball before that, but then again, he might be searching for an Ultra Ball and want to use the Level Ball as fodder to discard with the Ultra Ball, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Under usual circumstances, you would want to use a level ball to empty your hand a bit so that there were less cards in your deck, so that you had one less card in your deck, slightly increases the odds of you hitting what you want off the Trainer's Mail. Although, to be honest, what Ollie really wants is the turn 1 Vileplume, and it's looking like a pretty good situation at this stage. We see another Trainer's Mail coming down, and he's going to fail that one. The only viable target there was a Professor Sycamore. We just saw him draw a Professor Sycamore. We know he's going to have one next turn. So here comes down a level ball for the second Gloom. And I do think he should have played that level ball slightly earlier, because like I say, he then can take the Gloom out of his deck, which gives less cards in deck and a slightly higher chance of hitting what he wants. So he evolves up the Vileplume and he has to pass, which is a slight pain, but we know he's got a Water Energy in hand, and we know that he's got an AZ in hand, so he is going to be able to pick up that Gloom next turn, play down the Water Energy, and get attacking with Regice. And if he gets the turn 1 Trainer Lock and the turn 2 attack with Regice, you can see that against EX decks, Ollie's deck is really rolling. It means from the first turn onwards, they've got no, or from, after Ollie's first turn, they've got no support, no trainers, and from turn 2 onwards, they can't attack with EXs. Now, that was Intelligence Gathering, Vespiquen's first attack, which does 10 damage and allows you to draw until you've got 6 cards in hand. Tamao only had the 1 energy there, and he didn't have the KO anyway, and he had a small hand with not much, so he goes with the Vespiquen. There comes the AZ straight away, and remember that Forest of Giant Plants will allow him to just put the Gloom and Oddish down straight away if he would so wish. Bit of a shame that he doesn't have a Muscle Band here. Now, I did speak to Ollie about his deck recently. I believe he doesn't actually play Muscle Band. Oh, but he's using the first attack there, which does 30 damage, and flip a coin. If heads, we see Paralysis. And kudos to Tamao for getting the Paralysis flip right. As I said, there's no Muscle Band here, so we can only do 70 with the second attack. There comes a Feebas for the 1-1 Milotic line that Tamao runs. There comes a Vespiquen and a Lysandra on the Vileplume. So all he's going to want another AZ next turn to try picking up that Vileplume. So, yeah. All Ollie wants to do here, Tamao isn't going to be attacking with EX Pokemon, and 70 damage isn't enough to KO and there comes an Unknown and a Farewell Letter straight away to draw an extra card. So there's no point in using that second attack, because he's not getting the KO on the 90 HP Vespiquen. It makes more sense to use the first attack. If you hit a head, as he did, you get Paralysis. Your opponent is already blocked from using trainers due to Vileplume being on the field, so you can basically have a turn here. Oh, did he just top deck an AZ there? If he did, that's lovely. I don't know if he did. I only got a... Oh, no, it's a Sycamore. I can't see what that card was. Oh, maybe Tamao will show us in a second. Is that a Wally? Oh, no, it's a Steven. It's a Steven, which allows you to search your deck for 1 supporter and a basic energy. In my conversations with Ollie, he told me that Steven really was quite useful throughout the day here. So, Tamao gets a turn here, but it's really not the end of the world for Ollie. If Tamao KOs that Vileplume, Ollie can just drop a Vileplume onto the bench Gloom, the Trainer Lock will come back, and Tamao won't have a turn of trainers. But Tamao's got an opportunity here. He's got, I don't know how many Pokemon in the discard, but he's got a few. He can... Oh, and there comes a Bridget, allowing him to get free Pokemon. And Bridget can work a little bit like Cheron, in that you can actually search for 3 unknowns, as Tamao is doing here, or 2 unknowns and a Combi, and then you can basically put the unknowns down, immediately retire them, and at the very least, Bridget works like a Cheron, allowing you to draw 3 cards. And it's better than a Cheron, because as well as drawing 3 cards, you get to put 3 Pokemon in the discard pile, which of course is something that Tamao would very much like to be doing. So, Tamao here, his deck is running quite nicely. He does need the second energy on the active Vespiquen, but he's got another energy in hand. he does probably need a few more Pokemon in the discard pile. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Vileplume has a moderately substantial amount of hit points here. So, he's going to need a few Pokemon in the discard in order to actually get the KO on that Vileplume. It is a Vileplume from Ancient Origins, and it does have 130 HP and a retreat cost of 3, so Ollie is going to need to get that AZ out of the active. So Vespiquen, don't forget, has free retreat, and Tamao here is using Shaman. Now, there's a couple things that using Shaman to do 30 damage does. Firstly, it forces Ollie to get the Vileplume out of the active rather than knocking it out. Oh, and he's got the AZ to do so. But secondly and thirdly, it puts the Shaman into his hand, which both allows him to draw cards and gets it off the field. And it gives him the double colourless in hand, which he can use to attach to the Vespiquen to attack next turn. So a nice little play with a Shaman there. A little play, an understated play, but one which could well prove to be very, very useful for Tamao as he goes through the game. So we see a level ball coming down here. And we've got a Bunnelby on Ollie's side of the field. Now, I presume it looks like all he plays that he can get with this is an Oddish or a Gloom or a Bunnelby, and he's already got 2 Oddishes, 2 Glooms and a Bunnelby, so I'm not entirely sure what he's searching for, but playing the level ball just gets it out of his hand, essentially. Here comes a Trainer's Mail, and he's getting... Oh, he's got a Seismitoad, it looks like. Oh, look at Mr. Ollie Fenley. No, it's not, it's a Lugia. I'm lying to you. I think it's a full art Lugia. It looked like a Seismitoad, but no, upon second inspection, it looks like a Lugia. I don't know. Maybe they should just hold their, every time they get something like a Trainer's Mail, they should just hold it up so we can see what cards they've got. But maybe, maybe they're more concerned about playing their own game. So Tamao has got a Feebas on the bench. That leads him to a 1-1 Milotic line. Milotic is that card that we've seen in a lot of decks with Night March lately, which allows you to, when you evolve into Milotic, you get to take a card out of the discard pile and put it into your hand so you can recover a double colourless energy or a Shaman to draw cards or whatever. Now, the other thing, we see the same attack there, that Ice Beam, 30 damage, and he gets a Heads to Paralyze, 2 out of 2. They do need to put the 30 damage on there, though, because there is 30 damage on the Vespiquen. The other thing, there we go, it's like they can hear me. Now, the other thing that AZing that Vileplume did for Ollie is it actually allowed him to play that level ball, and before he got back the Vileplume out, got the Vileplume back out, and blocked trainers for Tamao. And that's why these Vileplume decks tend to play 4 copies of the supporter card AZ. AZ allows you to pick up 1 Pokemon on your side of the field, although you have to discard all energy and other cards attached to it. But for something like a Vileplume deck, you get to pick up the Vileplume, play all your trainers, put the Vileplume back down again, and leave your opponent just sitting there a little bit sad. So Ollie is in the driver's seat here, but it's not going to take much for Tamao to come out. What Ollie really needs is a Regice with an energy on, or something with an energy on. Because as it stands at the moment, yeah, Ollie can get a KO, but we know Tamao's got enough energy to get an attack with the Vespiquen. He needs 10 Pokemon in the discard pile to get a KO. Now, it looks like he's only got 5 or 6 there rather than the 10 he needs. But he needs to start, there is his Lugia. He needs to start building up another attacker, and he needs to do so quickly. Because if that Regice goes down... Vespiquen is one of these decks. It does 20 damage plus 10 for each Pokemon in the discard pile. So as the game goes on and more Pokemon get KO'd, it's like fighting a zombie war. The more of your opponent's, things that you kill, or, the longer the fight goes on, as the fight goes on, all the humans turn into zombies. Zombie army gets stronger. As the game goes on, as you KO stuff on Vespiquen's side of the field, Vespiquen gets stronger. I'm not saying Vespiquen is a zombie Pokemon, but I am saying that like zombies, it's waiting for the late game. Now, it looks like there were only 7 Pokemon in the discard there, so he only does 90 damage, so that Regice is going to survive, and it's going to KO that Vespiquen, leaving Tamao with nothing to attack with other than the Evil Tau. The other thing that Tamao had to do there is he had to attach a double colourless when that dark was already on there. And I can tell you, because the tournament's over and, lists change, Tamao's only playing 4 dark and 4 DCE in this deck, so that is an awful lot of energy to lose in one attacker. Now, we do see an Ariados go down there. Oh, and he's got the energy. Now, as much as I said that was a lot of energy to give up, that was a very good play from Tamao there. By putting down the DCE, he knew the Vespiquen was going down. Had he put the Dark on the Vespiquen's getting KO'd either way, but then he's left with only a DCE, and you can't use that to power up an Evil Tau. Whereas by putting the DCE on the Vespiquen before it got KO'd, he had a Dark Energy in hand that he could use to power up the Evil Tau on the following turn. And we see the Ariados on the bench. His ability allows you to poison both the active Pokemon, unless one of them is a grass Pokemon. So here comes a Lugia, and this is potentially good, potentially terrifying. And the reason, very simply, is as Tamao's deck gets stronger, there is a possibility of getting a one-hit KO on that Lugia. Now, Tamao has got a Regice in hand. He could bench the Regice with a DCE, start getting built up for next turn, or he could do what he's doing here and just essentially start smashing with Lugia, which is a decent thing. He gets to get the KO. Now, he does have to discard an energy to do so, but it looks a lot like, he's fully in control of this. Now, that's Deep Hurricane. It does 80 damage, and if there's a stadium in play, it does 150 and discards the stadium. So we see a Sycamore coming down from Tamao here. He's getting another couple Pokemon in the discard pile. And he's got the energy on that on the Shaman, which he's going to get back into his hand. Now, he's only doing 30 damage to the Lugia, but because he's going to be using Sky Return with Shaman, putting it back in his hand, he can afford to actually poison with Ariados here. So he's doing 40 damage and leaving the Lugia poisoned. So there we see he is using Ariados' attack. He's technically poisoning Shaman, and I just need to point out the giant gold medallion that Tamao uses as a poison counter, which is pretty cool. But we see here, Lugia's Aero Ball does 20 damage times the number of energy attached to both active Pokemon. It's currently doing 100. Ollie is going to KO that Zubat, and he's going to go down to just 2 prizes remaining. Now, at this point, he does need to start building up another attacker. It doesn't really matter if that Lugia goes down. Tamao, he's going to need to take 3 more prizes after the Lugia. But it does matter if that Lugia goes down and Ollie doesn't have another attacker to use in his stead. Now, Ollie is using a Judge here, which makes both players shuffle their hand into their decks and draw 4 cards. You can see he's using the Unleashed Judge. I want to say Unleashed. Pretty sure it's Unleashed. I did get it wrong on a previous video, but I corrected myself very, very quickly. It doesn't look like he's actually got an attacker or an energy there, which is a shame. He looks like he's got a Shaman, but nothing more than that. But he does get to take a prize. Don't forget the poison damage. Thank you. And, that Lugia's still got 120 HP left. He ain't going anywhere. And he's got 2 prizes remaining before he dies. Now, Tamao plays a teammates, allows him to search for any 2 cards in his deck. And he needs to think about scooping soon here. We are about 18 minutes into a 50-minute best of 3, which means that he's not going to win this game, it looks like. However, Tamao might be thinking, I don't like this matchup, this game's not going well. I don't mind this game going on a bit. I want to win. I want to try my chances at winning game 2. I don't think I'm going to win 2 games, but maybe I can win game 2 and take it to a draw. Or maybe he knows something that we don't know. Either way, it looks like Ollie's winning in 2 turns. But then again, Ollie still doesn't have another attacker out. Now, Judge is an awkward little card because it makes both players shuffle into shuffle their decks into their hand into their deck. There we go. And it causes game losses because people inadvertently play 2 supporters in 1 turn. You play a Sycamore and then a Xerosic, your opponent discards a DCE, and you say, oh, I've already played 2, and your opponent puts the DCE back. You play a Judge after playing a previous supporter, your opponent or you shuffles your hand in. We have what we call an irreparable game state, and you get a game loss for being an idiot. And that happened a few times at this tournament, and it's going to keep happening for as long as Judge is in the format. Apparently, people didn't learn last time. Hey-ho. Now, Tamao here, he's got the DC. Oh, here we go. Now, this is why Tamao didn't scoop. He is hoping, but it's not going to do much because, well, Ollie's got a chance to win here. But it looks like the Vespiquen's going to get the KO on the Lugia. I don't know how many Pokemon in the discard, but it's going to be enough. He's got the Vespiquen, he's got the DCE, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking like there is something Tamao can do. Looks like there is something he can do. So, now, it's not an issue at the moment, but there is actually a little issue. Well, not an issue, but there is a cool thing here where Tamao can actually make use of Ollie's Forest of Giant Plants to get a Vespiquen actually going in one turn, which is pretty gosh darned nice. Problem is, of course, Ollie's down to one prize remaining. Now, if he's got an energy and a Lysander, he can end the game here, pulling up one of the weak Pokemon off the bench and killing it with Miltank, who does 80 damage for 1 energy if you've got a stage 2 on the field. But it doesn't look like he's actually got an energy, and that's a problem. Miltank only does 80 damage to an active Vespiquen. Now, what he could do is do 80 damage with Miltank, allow the Miltank to die, and then get the KO with a Shaman, and then that would end the game. But now, you know, Tamao's got 3 prizes left. Tamao could even win in 2 turns if he can get another Vespiquen out and hit a Lysandra next turn or the turn after. He can actually win in 2 turns by KOing a Non-EX and the Shaman on Ollie's side of the field. So, as much as I said Tamao should think about scooping, I did mention that Ollie was having trouble getting out alternate attackers, and that very much looks like the case here. Ollie has no other attackers at the moment. What that means is, unless he can bring something, and he's pretty much got to play a Sycamore here, just to try and get an energy for the Miltank. But even that, ladies and gentlemen, won't get him the win. Tamao, I don't know how many Pokemon he's got on the discard pile, but I'm assuming it's at least 8. I'm sure it's at least 8. So he's got to do something here. He's got to get rolling. And there comes the Sycamore, getting rid of a whole bunch of stuff. He needs an energy of any description. He's got 1, but he really needs a DCE as well. Oh, and he's got... Oh, that's really, really good. All right. Ollie is back in command of this game. He can use the water energy on the Miltank to do 80 damage to the Vespiquen. It won't get the KO, but it will allow him to get the KO with Shaman next turn because he's got a DCE. Now, he does have an Ultra Ball in hand, but remember, he is trainer locked. So if Tamao can hit a... See, even if Tamao hits Lysandra here, he can KO the... And he can, because he's got the Milotic, so he can use the ability to potentially get one back. Now, what Tamao could do here, if he's... Now, he'd need a lot. He'd need a Vespiquen DCE Lysandra. If he's got... Oh, and he's got it. It looks like he's got it. He can pull up the Shaman and KO the Shaman after retreating. And now, he doesn't even have to KO the Shaman, to be honest, but now he is forcing Ollie to have a Lysandra to win next turn. Now, Tamao still needs 3 prizes left, but what this means is that if Tamao has got a Lysandra next turn, he wins. He is guaranteed to have a Vespiquen next turn. Ollie can't knock out both of them in one turn. So Ollie is going to need something, or he's going to lose. And it doesn't look like he's got it immediately. He can't even use the Xerosic because Tamao's got 2 DCEs on the board. So this could be one heck of a comeback from Tamao here. And it's going to make me look stupid for saying he should consider scooping. At the time, it looked like it. But of course, do remember that when I'm saying things like that, I don't have access to his hand. I'm not counting his discard pile. He has more information than we do watching the game. Now up goes the Bunnelby, which is almost an admission that he can't do anything here. He can't play his Ultra Ball. He doesn't really need to. He needs a Lysandra. He doesn't have a Lysandra. Now, what he can do is use the Bunnelby to shuffle 2 Lysandras into his deck or something along those lines. And, you know, attach the DCE to the Shaman. and just hope Tamal doesn't have a Lysandre, because if he does, ladies and gentlemen, the game is over next turn. So a really good comeback from Tamal here. Now we're 24 minutes into the game, and this could go either way. Now, we know Ollie doesn't have the Lysandre. If he did, he'd play it and just end the game as is. So he's put up the Bunnelby, and he's going to attach to the shed. Yeah, so everybody knows what's going on here. I mean, there's no way Tamal and Ollie both don't know what's happening. Ollie's sitting there going, I'm going to try and pull a Lysandre off this Sycamore. Oh, he's got one. And Tamal is sitting there basically saying, if I've got a Sycamore, I win. Simple as that. Not Sycamore, sorry, a Lysandre. Now, he has already used his 1-1 Milotic line, and he is trainer locked, so he can't use a VS Seeker, but as long as he can hit a Sycamore next turn, he has got the win. And that's what it's going to come down to, ladies and gentlemen. We know that Ollie has got the Sycamore here. Now, if Tamal doesn't have the Sycamore, another option he has is to not take the KO. So that way, Ollie would need the Lysandre and... Oh, has he got it? I can't see. There's something next to a VS Seeker there. But I mean, if it was, he'd probably have played it by now. If Tamal doesn't have it, he might be better off not taking a KO here. Because if he doesn't take a KO, then he forces Ollie to have the Lysandre and be able to get the Bunnelby out of the active. Whereas if Tamal takes a KO, then he's just got to have the Lysandre. Of course, the other argument is, by not taking the Bunnelby KO, you give Ollie an extra turn to get the Lysandre. So maybe it would be better to just kill the Bunnelby straight away and hope Ollie doesn't have the Lysander. Now, we know that Ollie's got the Lysander, but Tamal doesn't. So Tamal's got a decision to make here. Does he kill the Bunnelby and hope Ollie doesn't have the Lysander? Or does he not kill the Bunnelby, force Ollie to have the Lysander and an energy to get the Bunnelby out of the active, and then just hope that he draws a Lysander before Ollie does? And we know that looking at Ollie's side of the field, we know... Is it Ollie's turn? Why did he play a Flare Grunt? Oh, because he doesn't have a way to get the Bunnelby. Okay, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's what happened. Tamal passed. Ollie didn't have a way to get the Bunnelby out of the active. And now we're in a standoff, ladies and gentlemen. It comes down to, if Tamal draws the energy, if Tamal draws Lysandre, he wins. If Ollie draws the energy, he wins. Now, Ollie has drawn an AZ there, but that doesn't get him any closer to winning, because if he uses AZ to grab the Bunnelby out of the active, now he could use AZ to grab the Vileplume up and play some trainers, but I don't think he's got any trainers that would help. So Tamal here is doing what we suggested. Tamal is not killing the Bunnelby, forcing Ollie to have a way to get the Bunnelby out of the active and the Lysandre, which means that Ollie needs to... Oh, has Ollie got much of a deck left? Has Ollie got a deck left? I'm not sure Ollie's got a deck left, you know. Has he drawn his final card? I think he has. I think Ollie's losing by deck out. That was one of the best games I think I've commentated since I've been doing this channel. That was awesome. Really, really high-level play from two high-level players. And I just want to focus on that last turn of Tamal's there. Now, again, they have access to information we don't. Tamal was able to look through Ollie's discard pile, and he was able to see how many energy Ollie had played. And then he was able to use that to make an informed guess about whether Ollie had any energy left in the deck or not. And Tamal saw how small his deck was and tried to deck him out. A less experienced, less thoughtful player in that game would have just taken the KO on the Bunnelby, and we know that that would have resulted in a loss, because Ollie would have then just been able to play the Lysandre, bring up the almost dead Vespiquen and get the win. But realising that Ollie had less chance of winning if he didn't take the KO was the play that literally won him the game. Had he KO'd the Bunnelby, we know he loses, but because he didn't KO the Bunnelby, he wins the game. And this is what I've been talking about on my podcast, PTCG Radio, lately, looking for other ways to win the game. Focusing not on just, I'm going to do my usual strategy, which in Tamal's case is smash with Vespiquen. I am going to look and try and win in other ways. So a really, really good game we saw there. I'd like to think that that this game is going to hold up to it, but we've got about 20 minutes left before time is called. I'm not liking our chances. So we see a Bunnelby start from Ollie. He gets the Regice down. He's got an energy to attach. So a better start in one respect. And we see a level ball there, which presumably he's going to grab for the Oddish. Although he might instead want to go for the Forest of Giant Plants. Either way, he's going to be in a good position. He wants to put himself in a good position to get the Vileplume. So he's got the level ball, he's going to play it straight away, and he's going to get an Oddish. Why would he get anything other than an Oddish? He's going to try and get a turn 1 Vileplume, and turn 1 Trainer Lock is just so powerful in this format. That means Tamal can't use his Ultra Balls, it means Tamal can't use his Battle Compressors to fin his deck. There's no Muscle Bands to try and do extra damage, there's just less options. No Trainer's Mail to increase consistency. No VS Seeker. It means no Battle Compressor VS Seeker combo. Now, something I meant to mention in the previous game but got waylaid. You notice how Tamal didn't use a Battle Compressor turn 1. Oh, and it doesn't look like he's got the turn 1 Vileplume here. So he most certainly should not... Oh, no, he's going to play a Sycamore, sorry. I was going to say, otherwise, you don't put that down because it just helps Tamal get a... he's got an Ultra Ball and he's got a Trainer's Mail. Oh, and he's got a Level Ball, so he has got the turn 1. He's definitely got the turn 1 because he can Level Ball for the Gloom and Ultra Ball for the Vileplume. Tamal in the previous game, he used a Battle Compressor and didn't get rid of a supporter, as I said that most players do. Now, the reason for that is very simple. He knows he's going to be Trainer Locked. The only reason to put a supporter in the discard pile is to heighten your chance of hitting a supporter because then all 4 of your VS Seeker turn into a supporter. But when you're blocked from playing all 4 of your VS Seeker by Trainer Lock, or Item Lock I suppose it's more correctly called nowadays, you absolutely don't want them in the discard pile because then you've got less cards that can turn into supporters. So I never fully explained that play from Tamal there in game 1, so I thought it was worth actually explaining. So Wally here is getting rid of Team Flare Grunt and Lysandra, both supporters he'd rather not get rid of, but he's got to. And you see here in both games, Ollie's got a turn 1 Vileplume. And that's why we do this. The whole point of this deck is, I am going to get a turn 1 Vileplume. I am going to make sure that you essentially have nothing. I'm going to make sure that there is nothing you can do, and I'm just going to make sure that you basically can't play. Now here, presumably taking an AZ. Oh, no, a Sycamore to try and draw more cards. AZ is useful because it gets Bunnelby out of the active next turn. One thing that he can do here is essentially sit there and go, you know what, I'm just going to Bunnelby you, just get rid of a whole bunch of your cards. Of course, that could play into Tamal's hand, because if Tamal's got a Vespiquen DCE, he can get it going straight away, and Ollie might actually inadvertently end up discarding a whole bunch of Pokemon that will help to fuel Tamal's deck. So we get an energy on the Bunnelby there. Tamal is going to try and hit a... Oh, and he's getting 2 from the... Oh, and he hits an Ultra Ball, which would get him a Vespiquen. Oh, and he's having to AZ to pick up the Shaman and play it again to set up for 1, but he's got a Sycamore for next turn. So, what do we see from Ollie here? He's thinking, and yeah, now you see here, he's putting more Pokemon down on the bench. He's got that Lugia down. We saw last game, he ran into trouble by virtue of not being able to get another attacker. And because he didn't have the attackers lined up, he ended up having to put a Bunnelby in the active, which he couldn't get out the active, which in the end lost him the game. Had he had more attackers built up, he probably would have won the last game. But it's all a moot point. Now, he does have the water energy and the DCE, so he gets to attach to the Bunnelby And Bunnelby can attack twice because he's got Omega Barrage, the ancient trait that allows him to attack twice. And for 1 colourless energy, you can either discard the top card of your opponent's deck or put a card from your discard pile into your deck. So stuff like Lysandra, DCE, AZ. Oh, and it looks like he had to get rid of both his Lysandro nice and early in this game. So being able to Bunnelby to get both of them back, very useful. We know he's got a DCE ready, and we to put on the Regice next turn, and we know that he can retreat the Bunnelby using the water energy that is already on it. But by not being able to get that Bunnelby out of the active, he has had to say goodbye to an easy KO. He would have been easily able to KO that Combee using the Regice, and he would have been off. But he couldn't do that because he couldn't get it out of the active, and that's ended up hurting him. It now looks like Tamao might be getting the first KO here. Sorry, I lied to you. Bunnelby has a retreat cost of 2, so it's going to take more than that 1 water energy to allow him to retreat. So we see an unknown come down and use the ability Farewell Letter. And, Tamao here can even take advantage of that Forest of Giant Plants to start getting all of his Vespiquen out. This is playing into Tamao's hand. The last game, Ollie got a decent start, and he very, very almost pulled a win out. It was bizarre circumstances that he didn't. But if Tamao can just start streaming Vespiquen and get some Pokemon in the discard pile, he's going to be KOing Ollie's weak Pokemon very, very easily. But Tamao doesn't have the energy, so he puts up the Vespiquen without the energy because the undamaged Vespiquen needs the unenergied Vespiquen needs a DCE to attack, whereas a Vespiquen on the bench needs a Dark Energy or a DCE to attack, so it's more likely he's going to be able to use that one to attack next turn. And don't forget that they both have free retreat. Now he gets the AZ, has to discard the energy, but gets the Bunnelby out the active, and now he's going. He needs to start taking down these Vespiquen, because once Tamao starts going with the Vespiquen, and that's for 3 out of 3 heads on paralysis on that Ice Beam attack, he needs to start getting some KOs here, because if Tamao can just start going ahead and using Vespiquen every turn, he's going to run through Ollie's deck and he's going to win. Ollie needs to take some KOs before the Vespiquen zombie hoards it up and gets enough, in the discard pile to really make it viable. So, we see a Bridget there. And again, that both gives him the basics he wants and allows him a little bit of draw power by giving him access to the unknowns. Now, we do see him getting a regular Evil Towel there. What he can do there is start chipping away at the Regice, doing 50 damage, and 30 damage, sorry. It would only be 50 if he had a Muscle Band, which he can't play because he's item locked, while attaching some of his energy that would be in the discard pile to his bench Pokemon. Although I don't think there is any energy in the discard pile at the moment. So Ollie's going to have a KO this turn, doing 70 with Regice's second attack. He's going to go ahead, but he's also going to put 2 Pokemon in the discard pile. But remember that Regice has 120 HP, so it means that Tamao's going to have 10 Pokemon in the discard pile to KO the Regice. What he needs here, and here we go, I was just about to say, what he needs is to either put down a Regice and attach an energy, or attach an energy to the Lugia, so that when the first Regice goes down, he can start attacking with something else. Also, if he can hit heads on every paralysis flip, as he has been doing, that's going to help him. That's going to give him a leg up. So Combee goes down, second energy goes on to Vespiquen. We've got another Combee that could go down there, and he does. And we see a Sycamore. Now, what Tamao did in a previous last turn, he used a Bridget to get the 2 Evil Towels. He doesn't want to use Evil Towel. It doesn't do enough damage. So he used Bridget to get the 2 Evil Towels so that he could discard them with Sycamore the following turn and get 2 extra Pokemon in the discard pile to start fueling Vespiquen's Bee Revenge attack. So, I'm liking this. I'm liking what we're seeing here. Tamao is playing nice and methodically. Oh, and he's got enough for the KO. That is panic stations here. That is bad news for Ollie. Game 1 really went down to the wire, and in a way, he was quite unfortunate to lose. Game 2 does not look like it's going down to the wire. Tamao is already one-hit KOing with Vespiquen. He's got 2 more Combees ready on the bench. And here we go with a Steven, which is going to allow him to grab a supporter and an energy. Probably something like an AZ or maybe a Judge to try and disrupt Tamao's deck a little bit. Yeah, we go, and we do see the Judge here. It is a real shame that Ollie's not playing any Muscle Band here, and the Vespiquen has 90 HP, not 80, because that Miltank can hit for 80 damage for a single energy. Unfortunately, it hits for 80 damage for a single energy against a 90 HP Pokemon, which means that he's not going to be actually able to get any, yeah, he's not going to be able to do anything, which is a shame. Well, he's going to be able to do something. What I mean is he's not going to be able to do enough, which is sad. But hey-ho, these things happen. We can sit and cry about it, or we can get on with our lives. So, Tamao here, he's got a couple of prizes, and he's going quite nicely. If Ollie hits a double colourless here, he will get the KO on the Vespiquen, because he'll do 80 damage for the 4 energy combined. 20 times 4 is 80. I've done my maths and everything. And he's going to be able to, you know, get the KO. It doesn't look like he hit it. Did he hit it? It looked like it was an energy there. I didn't quite, it looked like it might have been. Oh, he's got the DCE. So he is getting the KO here, but he's going to be, I believe, still, oh no, he's going to be even on prizes at 2 each. But now he's leaving an EX in the active, while putting 2 more Pokemon into Tamao's discard. And if Tamao's got enough Pokemon in the discard, he's going to need 15. And remember that he's not going to be able to use Battle Compressor to do more. But if he's got a Golbat in hand, he could do 2 damage counters with the Golbat. It looks like he might have had about 12 there. I could be wrong. Oh, which means he's going to need 3 more. There is an unknown. Now, if... oh, very good here. Very nice indeed. So he's using the Sycamore. Now, he could have got rid of the unknown to see if he draws a Pokemon to get rid of with Sycamore. But then the problem with that would be that if he drew something like a DCE or a Crobat that he really didn't want to discard, he would kind of be forced to. So prudent to leave it till this turn. Now, does he have he's got an Ultra Ball, but we know that's not going to do the job. Does he have a Golbat? Does he need a Golbat? He's got a Zubat, and now it doesn't look like he's got the Golbat. Now, we don't know how many Pokemon he's got in the discard pile, I'm afraid. I didn't get to count along with him. It's enough, and I don't see how Tamao loses this game now. We know he's got a DCE. I don't know if he's got a Vespiquen, but it doesn't look like his active Vespiquen's going anywhere anytime soon. If he's got a Lysandre next turn, he's going to be able to KO that bench Shaman, and he's going to get the win. And this is what I've been talking about in this game. If Tamao gets rolling with the Vespiquen, he doesn't lose, because Ollie can't consistently KO those Vespiquen. And because he can't consistently KO the Vespiquen, there's just nothing that Tamao can do, which is sad, but somewhat, unfortunately, inevitable. So the judge comes down, and what he's basically saying is, I'm going to try and lower the chances of you having a Lysander in hand. We know if Tamao's got it, he wins. We know if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. All he needs is a Vespiquen DCE to basically guarantee the win. To guarantee the win. He's ahead on prizes, and anything that Ollie puts down, Tamao can one-hit KO. So if he puts down a Vespiquen DCE, he's got a KO on the Bunnelby this turn. With Vespiquen DCE would guarantee him a KO next turn, and essentially mean that there is no possibility of Ollie winning the game at all. Does he have a DCE as well? Now, I say, we have got a guaranteed win here, unless Ollie can get a KO and a Zerosic for the bench DC, and we know he can't, because we know there's no way he KOs that Vespiquen. Tamao's got the win. and good on him, quite frankly. So a really good game from two really good players with some interesting decks. Thank you to both boys for agreeing to be on stream. Oh, and yeah, Ollie Lassange a shame and Tamal retreats it with a DCE. Thank you very much to both boys for agreeing to be on stream. I very much appreciate that. Thank you to Deborah Richards for not only allowing us to stream, but making it incredibly easy. And congratulations to Tamal Cameron. Commiserations to Coach Trip Ollie Fennelly. Thank you very much, chaps, for allowing us to record your game. I thoroughly enjoyed watching, and I hope you lovely people did too. You know how this whole YouTube thing works. Comment, like, and subscribe. Make sure you watch some of my other videos. Check out the previous rounds if you haven't done so. I'll be back very shortly with round 5. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.